We like to believe our homes are safe, that locked doors, familiar walls, and the comfort of routine will keep the darkness away. But sometimes, terror slips through the cracks. A whisper in the hallway when everyone's asleep, a stranger hiding in the closet, a friendly voice at the door that isn't what it seems. These are not ghost stories. They are real accounts of ordinary people who stumbled into moments of unimaginable horror. Reminders that the scariest monsters often wear a human face. The Night Walker. Very few people experience something so traumatizing at a young age that it sticks with them forever. Alex was one of those people. He was maybe 7 or 8 years old. He and his older brother, Austin, grew up in a broken household. Their mom raised them alone. Their dad was a deadbeat who disappeared from their lives, and their mom worked 2 jobs to provide for them. She'd sometimes have to work night shifts, and would usually have their grandma stay at the house on those nights. Despite the circumstances, they were fortunate enough to have their own bedrooms in a small house. The area wasn't amazing, but it wasn't terrible either. It was a night like any other. Alex couldn't remember if it was a school night or a weekend, but he was in the living room with his grandma who was watching TV. He was playing loudly with Legos on his Lego table. He remembers his grandma repeatedly saying, "Alex, quiet down." Austin was already in bed. Alex's bedtime was 9:30, and given the time, he guessed it was a weekend night, as his bedtime would have been earlier on a school night. The layout of the house was simple. The living room, dining room, and kitchen were all connected. A hallway led to the bathroom and 3 bedrooms. Their mom's bedroom was at the end of the hall, and Alex's was in the middle. Their grandma would sleep in their mom's bed when she stayed over. Eventually, Alex went to sleep. His grandma would always go to bed early too, so after saying goodnight to Alex, she would go to the bathroom to brush her teeth before going to sleep. Alex had never been afraid of the dark. His mom always said he was a brave child, but that night, he woke up in the middle of the night, something unusual for him. As he was a very heavy sleeper, he heard something in the hallway. The wood floors in that house were always very creaky. You'd hear it anytime someone walked down the hall. Alex thought his grandma was going to the bathroom, but the creaking didn't stop. It sounded like the creaks were moving back and forth. He got out of bed and went to the door to listen. Now he heard whispering. He was more confused than anything, thinking his grandma was talking to Austin. He opened the door and looked into the hallway. What he saw still haunts him. A tall, naked, skinny woman was leaning on the wall with her head between her arms, whispering to herself. Then, like a deer in headlights, her head whipped around to look at him. Alex screamed for his grandma and slammed his door shut. The woman began to pound on his door, screaming, "Jeremy! Jeremy! Open the door!" Alex kept screaming as loud as he could for his grandma, and he heard her scream in the hallway. He distinctly remembers his grandma screaming, "Get the f*** out of here!" The woman screamed back, "Where is Jeremy?" His grandma was in her mid-60s, but she was still pretty quick. She yelled at Alex to keep his door locked and managed to fend off the woman while calling the police at the same time. Alex didn't know how she did it, but his grandma was one tough woman. The woman left the house still screaming, "Jeremy!" After locking the door, his grandma came to hug both him and Austin, who was awake and also crying from the commotion. They all sat huddled together until the police came. By that time, his grandma told him to just go back to sleep. This was simply a matter of his grandma not locking one of the doors, combined with living in an already shady area. That woman had to be on something. Seeing what he saw at such a young age did a number on Alex. He couldn't sleep alone for a long time. It was this incident that ultimately resulted in them moving out of that house not long after. Sometimes, a single moment of vulnerability can expose you to a threat you never knew existed, reminding you that true safety often depends on more than just the locks on your doors. The Unseen Presence. When Daniel was 19, he lived a pretty normal life. He had finished high school the year before, and he was an avid fan of horror, whether it was movies, games, or jump scares. He never seemed to be afraid of anything, and he loved that. It made him appear tougher to girls he was interested in, and he thought of his lack of fear almost like a superpower. His friend, Megan, often talked about her experiences with sleep paralysis, a REM-induced nightmare. Daniel had never experienced such a thing and was skeptical. Megan also suffered from extreme lucid dreaming and had explained how outside factors could turn her dreams into either a heavenly experience or a bone-chilling nightmare. Being a light sleeper, Daniel saw no chance of this happening to him, so he didn't give it much thought. One night, Megan texted him, asking him to come over because she had just suffered another evil experience. When Daniel arrived, he found her seemingly peacefully asleep. He took a seat on her makeup stool by the window and started playing a game on his phone. After about 30 minutes, he figured she was okay, and that it would be fine to leave as long as he let her know that he had stopped by. But suddenly, Megan awoke and started screaming. It was a strange, mumbled scream, a sound Daniel had never heard from her before. Her eyes bulged open and he ran to her side. He asked if she was having a bad dream, but she just started shaking. He grabbed her to try to calm her down, but her tremors grew. He asked her what was wrong, but she didn't respond. He figured it was just another one of her so-called sleep paralysis episodes and did his best to comfort her. After about 30 seconds, she regained full control of her body. Daniel made sure she was okay and then left for his house as it was almost 1 a.m. Right as he got home, he received a very panicked text from Megan. The hallucinations won't stop. He asked her to clarify, but there was no response. After waiting about 30 minutes, he decided to head back to her place. As he approached her house, he saw red and blue lights flashing across her front porch and the surrounding road signs. He ran up to the house, desperate to find out what had happened. Megan was speaking with one of the officers, and they both walked over to a more secluded area to talk to him. What Daniel found out still sends chills up his spine. Apparently, when he had gone over to Megan's that night, she wasn't asleep at all. She was only pretending to be. Hiding in her closet right behind him was a tall, skinny, homeless man. The police had also found a very large kitchen knife on him. The theory is that Megan thought she was having an episode, when in reality, this very real man was quietly creeping towards her in her bedroom. When Daniel had entered her house, it was enough to spook the man into hiding, and Daniel's presence was enough to keep him hidden. This gave Megan the time to call 911 and report the situation, which resulted in the police arriving almost immediately after Daniel had left. Thankfully, the man was taken into custody rather quickly. To this day, Daniel doesn't know what to think about that night, other than that he could have very easily saved her life simply by keeping her company during what he thought was a very stressful situation. His presence may have prevented a very scary and heinous act from taking place. This incident taught him that sometimes a simple act of friendship can have a profound impact, and what we perceive as a minor inconvenience can be a matter of life and death. He hopes he never experiences such a thing, as it would likely be what finally makes him feel true fear. The Decoy. About 10 years ago, Michael moved out of his mom's house and into his first apartment in Chicago. The place was a nice 3-bedroom on the city's south side in a friendly neighborhood by the University of Illinois. He lived with 2 roommates, Tom and Mike. Michael and Mike were good friends, while Tom was a friend of Mike's whom Michael had not met before. They all ended up getting along just fine. One night, about a month after moving in, Michael met up with a few friends for drinks at a bar about 10 minutes from his place. He had a good time and ended up getting slightly drunk before getting into a cab at 1 a.m. and heading home. Upon walking into his apartment, he noticed that Tom's door was open, which meant he was staying at his girlfriend's place. Mike's door was closed, with the light from his TV shining underneath the crack. Michael made his way to his bedroom and turned on his own TV before lying down to prepare for sleep. After about 10 minutes, he heard his doorbell ring. Half asleep, he woke up confused. It was 1:30 in the morning, so he ignored it. A few seconds later, the doorbell rang again, and then again a few seconds after that. It's important to mention that his roommate, Mike, had a good amount of side cash from dealing weed to a few people. He was also a huge stoner himself, so the idea that he had fallen asleep while waiting for a late-night customer was not out of the realm of possibility. With this in mind, Michael went over to his intercom and asked who was there. A girl's voice answered back, "It's Emma. I'm here to see Mike." Thinking his suspicions had been confirmed, Michael exited his front door and headed down the stairs. The door to the outside of their apartment building was made of tall glass, so he could easily identify any potential visitors. He saw an attractive, college-age blonde girl with glasses waiting patiently outside. He had never seen this person before, but she appeared to be non-threatening. Besides having random customers over, Mike would also have some random girls over to hook up with from time to time. Because of this, Michael let his guard down slightly and cracked the door open. The girl then repeated what she had said moments earlier over the intercom. "Hi, I'm here to see Mike." Michael replied, "Okay, he's here, just follow me up." And he held the door open for her. She grabbed the handle, and Michael turned around to head back up the stairs. As he was walking back up, he quickly noticed that Emma was not following him. He glanced over his shoulder and saw that she was still standing outside, holding the door open. Now, she was staring off to her right, almost as if she were waiting for someone. At this moment, a tidal wave of fear crashed over him as he realized something horrible was more than likely about to happen. He continued walking up to his place, quicker now. After turning the corner of the stairs, he heard the door swing open, and then heavy footsteps running up the stairs behind him. He looked over his shoulder again, and what he saw shook him to his core. A tall, gangly man with sunken eyes and greasy long hair down to his shoulders was running up the stairs straight at him. He was wearing a sleeveless black t-shirt, and besides the cheap-looking tribal tattoos creeping up his arms, Michael noticed he was also holding what looked like a lead pipe in his right hand. At this moment, his body shot full of adrenaline as he turned and raced back up the stairs and into his apartment. He stood facing the now-closed door, paralyzed, as the man hit the door 3 more times while shouting obscenities at him. The man eventually gave up and ran back down the stairs and out the front door. Meanwhile, Mike had buzzed the girl up after only hearing her name, thinking she was a friend of Michael's. When she reached the door to their unit, he opened it and let her in. Mike said it seemed like she was confused, mentioning she was looking for someone named Tim. Mike responded by saying his own name, that no one named Tim lived there. He mentioned that she stayed near the entrance of the unit and kept reaching behind her to make sure the door stayed open before leaving only a few moments later. After hearing this, Michael's theory is that these same people came earlier in the day and, not expecting someone to just let them up through the buzzer, the girl made the mistake of forgetting to keep the door to the building open, which rendered the attacker unable to enter during this first attempt. Either way, they both got extremely lucky that night. They called the police, who arrived and asked for more information. They asked if there was anyone they knew who might want to do them harm, and they answered no, which was the truth, as this seemed to be a completely random attack. The police left soon after, saying there was not much they could do. They never saw that Emma girl or her partner again. This incident is a powerful reminder that our perceptions of safety and trust can be easily manipulated. It underscores the chilling truth that a seemingly harmless situation can be a calculated trap, and that the greatest threats often hide in plain sight behind a veneer of normalcy. The final message. The story of Liam happened to him 4 years ago when he was in his mid-20s. This whole experience would probably scar him for life, and it's still vividly imprinted in his mind. The day was the 15th of June, and he had the house to himself because his parents were on a 2-week vacation in France. It was sometime after dusk, probably around 8 p.m., and the weather was scorchingly hot. Believe him when he says he was sweating his ass off with just a tank top and shorts on. The heat was so unbearable that he allowed in some fresh air, opening all the living room and bedroom windows, planning on closing them right before hitting the hay. He was feeling extremely exhausted. On that same day, he had taken 3 exams in the morning and played a volleyball match in the afternoon. Thus, once he ate his dinner while browsing social media in his room, he collapsed into bed without even realizing it. He woke up at around 3 a.m. to the muffled sounds of thunderbolts and a draft of cold, fresh air hitting his face. A strong wind was blowing, and all the shutters left open were noisily banging. Still drowsy, he flicked on the lamp, but the light wouldn't turn on. He checked the plug with his phone's flashlight, but everything was fine. He begrudgingly climbed out of bed and looked out his bedroom window. There were menacing, rainy black clouds on the horizon. A typical late-night summer storm was approaching. Given that every lamppost in the street was off, he instantly knew there had been a blackout. Phone flashlight in hand, he dizzily headed down the hallway to shut the windows before the rain started pouring down. When he got to the last window, he noticed the mosquito net was lifted up. This struck him as weird since he was quite positive he hadn't left it that way. Getting a little paranoid, he turned around and shined the flashlight around the living room to check his surroundings. The furniture was still in place. No drawers or closet doors were left open, and no decorative objects were missing or moved into unfamiliar positions. Everything seemed normal. He briefly peeked his head out of his window to look outside. Trees swayed in the howling wind and leaves shook in a frenzy. It was a powerful display of nature's force, but still nothing remotely suspicious. Maybe the mechanism was faulty, or the strong wind had somehow pushed it up. Against his better judgment, he convinced himself it was useless to lose sleep over it. Feeling relieved, he closed the shutters and started walking back to his bedroom, eager to get a decent night's rest. Little did he know that night would be anything but pleasant. He happened to casually turn his head to the flight of stairs connected to the attic when a vivid burst of light flashing from up there caught his eyes. He paid it no mind. The attic was adorned with huge glass windows, so it was no wonder to see light spreading across the room. It was probably sheet lightning. He kept walking, subconsciously waiting for the thunder to come, but it never did. He stopped in his tracks. Given that the flash he saw was powerful and bright, the lightning had to be pretty close. So why couldn't any rumbling noise be heard? He started to think maybe it wasn't lightning. What if it was a flashlight? As doubt crept in, his heart began to race. He quickly put two and two together, and now the strange occurrence of the mosquito net made much more sense. The nightmarish realization hit him. An intruder could have broken into his house. At first, he panicked. Had they heard him shutting the windows? Were they carrying any weapons? Did they plan on just robbing his house? Or did they also have worse intentions? Normally, he would call his parents to deal with it, but since they were away, it was all on him now. While those sickening thoughts were swirling in his mind, the distinct sound of a doorknob being twisted and turned made him instantly snap out of his catatonic state. He shot his head to face the living room entrance, and through the glass frame, he spotted a shadowy figure just a few inches outside of the front door. There was a person standing there, most likely an accomplice of the guy upstairs. Words are not enough to describe how powerless and defenseless he felt. Despite the overwhelming fear, he did his best to keep his cool. Trying to make as little noise as possible, he tiptoed in the direction of the stairs leading down to the basement, which was directly connected to the garage. He figured he could safely escape from there. While he was making his descent down, still using his phone as a source of light, he dialed 911 and, speaking as softly as possible, he informed the operator about what had just happened. The operator tried to calm him down and reassured him that the police would be there in less than 10 minutes. He also added that he should lock himself in a safe room and wait for the officers to show up. Liam was about to reply that he could easily sneak outside through the garage door when, all of a sudden, he lost the call. He immediately checked the phone and realized that he had no signal down there. As if it wasn't enough, he also noticed the battery was almost dead. Once he reached the basement, he nervously assessed what to do. He could try and find an emergency flashlight, but now he was so close to escaping from the house that he didn't want to waste time rummaging through the drawers. Besides, he was mindful that the intruders upstairs could have heard him, so in the heat of the moment, he exited the basement as fast as he could. Nonetheless, while making his way toward the garage door, he got a feeling in his gut that he was being watched. He didn't even know why. Maybe his sixth sense had picked up on something, but he pointed his phone to illuminate the back seats of his car, and there he was. A man's face was stuck to the rearview mirror. A disgusting, revolting face with dead, bulgingly wide eyes and a malicious, yellowish grin spreading across its cheeks. He kept staring at Liam so intently it almost looked like he was piercing into his soul. He slid his dirty hand against the glass, waving him hello in an unnatural slow motion. And at that point, it happened. His phone battery died, turning off the flashlight and leaving him in the middle of a total darkness. He felt his heart in his throat. He had never been more scared in his entire life. His whole body was quivering and shaking in fear. When he heard the car door opening, he lost it. He screamed. He screamed like a little girl as he somehow managed to unlock the garage door and bolt outside, climbing up the driveway ramp. By that time, heavy rain had started pouring down. He hopped over the gate and ran to the nearest house, yelling like a lunatic for the neighbors to rush outside. They came out in shock, and he explained the whole situation, almost out of breath and soaking wet. In the meantime, he heard sirens in the distance. 2 police cars rolled down the street, and he practically ran into the officer's arms, screaming that there were 3 strangers in his house. 4 agents went into the house, guns drawn, while another took his description of the events. Those 3 men were all gone, though, and to this day, he doesn't think they have ever been caught. Some antiques which held some value were stolen. However, he must say it was no big deal for his family. For the remainder of the night, he couldn't sleep at all. He kept tossing and turning, jumping at the slightest sounds, ruminating relentlessly on the horrific experience. But he kids you not, another chilling surprise was lying in wait. When morning came, he spotted a small piece of paper sticking out of the edge of his bed. He picked it up and froze stiff. The following words were written: "Bye-bye, beauty. You look cute when you sleep." This incident taught him that sometimes the greatest threats aren't the ones you can see in the shadows, but the ones who have already found their way into your home. It's a sobering reminder that your sense of safety is often a fragile illusion, and sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that end with an unspoken promise.